real Suzie Merch Queen. And if any of you are Christian rock and metal fans listening to this, chances are good you have run into Suzie Andrews, Suzie the Merch Queen, metal fan, Christian metal fan extraordinaire. So first of all, Suzie, thanks for spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me. It's been great on my day off.
Awesome. Great way to spend your day off. And I got to say, obviously this is audio, so they can't see what we see. But you are wearing a T-shirt from one of my favorite bands, one of Wildman's favorite bands, and that is Barbara Streisand. Oh, yeah. No, it is what?
Striper Goddamn Evil.
Okay, so that's their last album that just came out a couple years ago.
By the way, folks, if you can't tell, it's getting late here, so...
just a killer album.
Yes,
so we want to talk about you and metal and your interest in rock and so forth. But what did you think of that album, Suzie?
I thought it was great. The first song that they had out was really screamo.
It was very different for them.
I had to get used to that sound, but I really got into it in the last probably minute. I had that serious crew that I just loved, and the rest of the album was really good too.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, what about that title track, Goddamn Evil? That brought me right back to the 80s.
Exactly. I blare that in my car all the time.
And listen, and you guys, of course, you know the song so well, but the lyric of that is so good for today. You know, we power up the empty screens and let the games begin. A special kind of poisoning, you know, and then it just takes you into that and go, wow, how many people are trapped in that? And then you just want to cry, God. Right, bring it into that. Just condemn it. Damn that evil. Break down the walls and that. So good stuff. So, of course, I'm sure you're looking forward to the new Striper album.
I am really looking forward to the new Striper album, especially now that Perry Richardson, formerly Firehouse, which I've been friends with since, 1991, is in the band. I got to see him with Firehouse a bunch of times. I'm a big Firehouse fan.
We're talking about Striper here, but I saw them over in Ohio, and they were having fun on stage. And when Michael would go hang with Perry or Oz would go hang with Perry, you can just tell the guys were having fun, and that was really good to see. Tell us a little bit about how you got into Christian hard rock and metal as a fan.
Well, I'm going to blame this one on my brother Brian. I just remember as a kid when I was still listening to like Wham and all the pop stuff. He had Soldiers Under Command on tape.
Oh, wow.
Put it in, and I was riding with him, and I said, they sound like girls. But sure they did. I was a little bumpkin. And after that, just something just clicked. Heard Two Hell of the Devil, and that was it.
Well, before we go any further, let me interrupt this program because we just stumbled onto a little bit of piece of trivia of the CCR podcast. Because it was through Striper Goddamn Evil that this podcast started. Because that's how Steve met the Wildman. Or how Wildman met Steve.
Yes, that's right. In connection with Mark Middleburg, the apologist, and
so it was that.
Yeah.
You can be thankful, folks, for us because of that.
That really needs to be like our anthem.
Yes, we need to beat that
our anthem song. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about why do they call you the Merch Queen? What's that all about?
Yes, inquiring minds would like to know.
Well, I kind of nicknamed myself that because Christian bands, secular bands, whoever it is, you know, it actually started out with Firehouse. Perry was in the band. Their merch guy, Randy, at the time, was so bombarded with selling T-shirts, and I said, Randy, I'm going to come help you. And so I started selling shirts, and that, and they were bored. So I've sold merch for Damon Johnson and Brother Kane, Slaughter, Firehouse, Striper, Guardian, imagine this, Hair of the Dog, Nickelback of all bands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Wow. How long have you been coming to this festival?
This is my first time.
This is your first time, and what do you think?
I love it so far.
Awesome.
How does it compare to other venues you've been at?
I like it. It is smaller, but the sounds really amazing.
It sounds great, yeah.
The bands that I've seen so far are great. I've already seen Grave Robber like 4 or 5 times, so I'm good friends with Sean and the guys. So
quick question, just total guesstimate here, right? How many concerts, roll festivals into that, would you estimate that you've been to in your life?
Okay, so and probably between them, Firehouse and Striper, and probably Slaughter and Quite Right, the main 4, I'm easily over 100, so I'm probably over ballpark 500-600 concerts probably.
Wow. That is fantastic.
I would say, Steve, that classifies as a metalhead. Hey, Suzie, thanks so much for taking time to spend a little time with us, Wildman and Steve here today. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the fest.
Thank you so very much, guys. You rule. I love the podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing to broadcast on-site at the Kingdom Come Festival. This has been great, hasn't it, Steve?
You know, it's been fantastic, Wildman. And the thing is, as the day progresses, okay, I'll be honest, I'm looking for a little something else. I'll be looking for, I don't know, a myth, a legend, maybe a man who is the myth and the legend. I don't know if you could point me in the right direction to such a person.
So I'm thinking of the idea of source, like
the source
behind everything that's happening.
I don't know if you know who that is, but man, I sure love to meet that guy.
Yeah, I do. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, with us is Chris, the director of Kingdom Come Festival. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Oh man, that's awesome. So, all right, so Chris Bosom, this is the 11th year for Kingdom Come Festival. Honestly, why? Christian heavy metal in the middle of the heartland here in Indiana. Why?
Okay, well, actually, I would say the impetus for this whole concept was we were big fans of Cornerstone Festival. And we loved the idea that they reached outside of the comfort zone. They reached outside of the tradition. They reached outside of what you would expect of Christian music. Because I always felt like an outsider. My nephew always felt like an outsider. We would go to Cornerstone festivals together, my nephew being Jay Karp. We started a band, a garage band. And I'd written music for a long time. And we ended up trying to set up our own shows. We weren't good, but we had a message. Hey, it's good if you know your abilities.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we weren't good, but we had something we wanted to do. And so we would set up our own shows and we would open because we knew nobody's going to come see, right? And then we'd get a decent band from the area, and then we would get maybe another band to play in between, and we'd try to find some good Christian rock bands in the area, maybe an attached state. And after a year and a half or so of that, we ended up getting this great venue in downtown Kokomo with this great big field and this nice pavilion. And we thought, well, if we're going to get this pavilion, why don't we get a few more bands in here and just make it like a festival? And so we ended up getting 7 bands, and that was in 2010. And we opened, and it was a complete flop. But the people who were there were really blessed. The bands that performed were really blessed, and we tried to make this thing we tried to approach it with a heart of ministry where we wanted to reach the people who were unreached, and we did it with as much integrity as possible. And so all of a sudden we had a few bands that became followers or convinced or supporters of our ministry, and boom, we just turned into Always One Ministries at that point, and Kingdom Come Festival became a yearly thing. And it's just something that we've poured our hearts into, and we have a vision to constantly reach those who are unreached. And the whole purpose of the ministry, Always One Ministries, is that there's always one who could use the music, always one who could use that special touch, that special opportunity like we're providing here this weekend. There's always one person who we could possibly reach. If we just reach that one person, perhaps that will actually be 10 or 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, as you say that, Chris, that hits home so much with me, because that's what my life was like. Because Christian rock at the time when I was in high school fit that mode for me of somebody being an outsider.
Right.
And when you went to a Christian rock concert or a Christian rock festival, you were accepted.
Yes.
And so I commend you for continuing that vibe and continuing this festival going. So how would you describe right now, I know you mentioned about those that don't fit in, but how would you paint a picture of the common attender of KFC?
Okay. Right. Okay. KFC is normally very hungry people for chicken. But KCF, and we confuse it ourselves. But KCF, the average person, it's really almost impossible to describe. It's generally speaking, it's somebody who loves Christian rock music. You know, and that could be people who are more in the goth culture, underground culture. It could be people who are more on the rough edge, biker type. It could be people like myself, who people consider to be like a straight, lazy, kind of a traditional kind of person. I don't consider myself that, but people look at me dressed normally, and that's how I am. I don't have a tattoo, right? Yeah. So. But I've always felt like an outcast, and I think a lot of these people feel like an outcast. Whether they're dressed like your average Joe that's walking into Walmart, or if they're dressed like somebody just walked out of an emo concert, everybody here feels a little bit broken, a little bit hurt, and they come here and everybody loves everybody. And it doesn't matter, and everybody, you look and the people are sitting side by side and laughing together and hugging on each other and loving on each other, and it is just an incredible vibe, like you said, that really you have a hard time experiencing outside of a Christian metal or rock festival. Because the more traditional we get, the more limitations and expectations we seem to have. That's unfortunate, and it's not just due to the kind of people, and it's not just due to that kind of music, but people just seem to be that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I totally would agree with that, Chris. I mean, we immediately experienced love. We were even setting up our tent yesterday from people we didn't even know, and it was extraordinary. So, tell us, I'm guessing you wouldn't accept just any Christian band at this event. So, I mean, somebody comes up and says, hey, we're polka music for Christ. You're probably going to say you need to find another fest. What are kind of the parameters, or what are you looking for or not looking for as you look at bands for maybe next year's KCF?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because we have the submission form, and we have the bands kind of describe themselves. And one of the things they always do is describe who they shared the stage with. And that is like one of the biggest turnoffs to promoters, because we know it gets about as much baloney as possible. People stack in there. I shared this stage with Skillet. Well, just because you were on a stage that Skillet later was on, if you were on tour with them, that's one thing. But just the fact that, because any venue anymore, you can be on the stage with somebody, Right. So what we're looking for is somebody who's got. We want to see a little bit of stability, as far as like if you haven't played for 3 months or 6 months or something like that. We want to see that you're committed to your sound. We also want to see that there's a certain maturity in your Christian walk. We look at their pages, and we want to, Facebook pages and things like that, and their social media, and if they're down on others, and if they're vulgar, or perverse or things like that, it's a huge turnoff. Plus, we get a lot of the bands that have become a part of our band family. We'll say, "Hey, have you heard of such band?" What have you experienced with them? But we don't only go by that. We put the whole thing together because we know that sometimes somebody could rub somebody the wrong way, give them the wrong vibe.